What's up everyone, and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with fans concerned about Edwards vs. Usman trilogy after Usman seen nursing hand injury. Going into 2023, a trilogy fight between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman seemed like a done deal. After Edwards shocked the world by delivering one of the greatest upsets in the history of the sport, UFC President Dana White set his sights on booking a trilogy fight for the new year. With a targeted rematch in London, it seemed as though it was only a matter of time until the fight was finalized. Before the end of the year, the UFC announced the pay-per-view at the O2 Arena in London for March 18th. The card many expected an Edwards vs. Usman trilogy fight to headline. Unfortunately, there has since been no word on whether or not the fight will be finalized in time. As fans anxiously wait in limbo for news, concern recently spread throughout the fight community as Usman was seen at Face-Off Fight Night in Lagos, Nigeria, with a cast of sorts on his hand. It's worth noting that Usman's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, recently tweeted back in early December that reports of Usman being forced out of a potential trilogy fight as the result of hand surgery were fake news. While the former champion could be ready in time for the UFC 286 card in March, the fight community has begun to talk about a potential replacement opponent for Edwards. The one name that has continued to surface among fans is Khamzat Chimaev, who has yet to find a willing opponent for his first fight in 2023. According to the undefeated contender, the UFC has offered 4 opponents a fight, with each one being turned down. Although Kevin Lee recently stated he'd be willing to return to the UFC to fight Khamzat Chimaev, it seems the fight community is overwhelmingly in favor of Chimaev stepping in to fight Edwards in London. What do you think? Will Usman be ready in time? Will Edwards fight at UFC 286, or will the UFC push the rematch down the road? Sound off with your predictions in the comments below. Aljamain Sterling fires back at Chito Vera after recent comments on weight cutting. UFC bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling recently found himself in the crosshairs of number 4 ranked Marlon Chito Vera recently. During a podcast appearance, Vera revealed that he believes cutting massive amounts of weight is the same thing as cheating. Of course, Vera isn't the only one who thinks this way. Back in November, longtime UFC commentator Joe Rogan dubbed Alex Pereira's massive cut to 185 pounds as sanctioned cheating, given how much weight he has to shed. According to Vera, the reason Sterling was knocked out cold back in 2017 by Marlon Moraes is because of how drained the Funkmaster was from his massive cut down to 135 pounds. Needless to say, Vera's criticism of Sterling didn't go over too well with the champion. He fired back in a recent video on his YouTube channel, addressing the situation and the knockout, saying,
I literally ran face first into a knee against Marlon Moraes and I got face planted. Chito, Dom, Frankie, Giannis, Marab, Umar, Garbrandt, the whole bantamweight division could go do the same exact thing and get hit on the same exact spot from a force of a kick like that. And I guarantee you, you are sleeping. What are we even talking about? How are you even comparing that to, that's why he's been KO'd unconscious?
Cutting excessive amounts of weight has been quite the hot topic lately. As technology and research advances, it's been shown that fighters who rapidly cut weight before fights are more susceptible to concussions. Given that, some feel as though something should be done to ensure that fighters aren't cutting too much weight and putting themselves in even more danger before stepping into the octagon. Despite that, figuring out a way to regulate weight cutting could prove challenging. Although we've seen ONE FC implement hydration testing, a one-size-fits-all approach seems quite a ways off. Do you think we'll ever see weight cutting regulated? Or is cutting weight simply just part of the sport? Give us your thoughts in the comment section below. Big John McCarthy doubts UFC will ever host a cross-promotion event. On New Year's Eve, fight fans were treated to a cross-promotion event between Bellator and Rizin, with the two powerhouse promotions pitting their fighters against one another. The action-packed event saw Scott Coker's fighters go 5-0 over the course of the main card, leading to talk of a potential cross-promoted event with the UFC. Although the idea of seeing champions from different promotions match up once a year to fight has fans salivating, Big John McCarthy doesn't think the UFC would participate in such an event. He spoke during a recent podcast, referencing the time Dana White worked out a deal for the Iceman Chuck Liddell to compete in the 2003 Pride Middleweight Grand Prix tournament as the official UFC representative. After Liddell knocked out Alistair Overeem in the first round, He met Quinton Rampage Jackson in the second round, where he was defeated. After the event, Pride was supposed to send the Gracie hunter Kazushi Sakuraba to compete in the UFC. However, they never did. As a result, Big John thinks with little to gain, Dana White is too afraid to get burned in another cross-promotion deal.
And so he looks at it now like, hey, we are the biggest organization. He is absolutely right. And what's it do for my organization? What does it do for me as the promoter? And he's saying that, no, it's only a benefit for the other promotions, and I'm not here to benefit them. And so his choice is to say, I'm not going to do it.
Although a cross-promoted event with Bellator is highly unlikely to ever take place, it hasn't stopped a debate regarding theoretical matchups. With fighters like Bellator's lightweight champion AJ McKee and Patricio Pitbull earning wins on the card, fans can't help but talk about their chances against top UFC contenders. Before we continue, make sure you give that like button some love and be sure to subscribe to the MMA Zone for all of the latest news. Sean O'Malley thinks Volkanovski is tougher challenge than Makhachev is expecting. Fresh off a dominant win over Charles Oliveira at UFC 280, Islam Makhachev's confidence is sky high. With an 11-fight win streak to his name and the number 2 spot on the official pound-for-pound rankings, the Dagestani superstar will look to keep momentum rolling when he steps into the octagon with Alexander Volkanovski at UFC 284. Although Makhachev is a pretty heavy betting favorite currently, bantamweight number 1 contender Sugar Sean O'Malley, he thinks the featherweight champion will be a much tougher task than Makhachev is expecting. Although Volk is coming into the fight as the smaller fighter, and Makhachev's grappling has proven to be overwhelming, O'Malley thinks Volkanovski could even get the job done against the streaking lightweight champion. He spoke in a recent interview with Helen Yee, saying,
"You know, they're such known for their grappling, but those guys can, throw good combinations and they have good striking. So I was impressed with Islam's striking, and it's gonna be tough beating that dude. I do have a weird feeling Alexander Volkanovski is gonna be a lot bigger of a challenge than everyone thinks. Could even potentially get the job done against Islam. But if Alex can't, I don't know who can."
To his credit, Volkanovski has remained adamant that he's doing all the right things in training camp so that he can be at his best come fight night. With all of the training he's been doing, Volkanovski recently predicted that if the champion takes him down, fight fans will not see him panic. Several weeks before that, he said he can't wait to see the look on the champion's face when he fails to get the takedown. With less than 2 months to go until the fight, we want to hear from you. Give us your predictions for the fight in the comments section below. And now for our breaking news story of the day. Jake Paul shuts down Cowboy Cerrone, sets sights on younger opponent. Former UFC title challenger Donald Cowboy Cerrone recently threw his name in the hat of potential opponents for Jake Paul after the controversial YouTuber defeated Anderson Silva via decision in their highly anticipated showdown back in October. Many questioned who the undefeated personality would square off with next. While many predicted that he would match up with Nate Diaz next, there's been little news on a potential fight. In the meantime, former UFC contender Donald Cerrone gave Paul his props in a recent video, saying that if Paul needed an opponent, he was happy to oblige. Paul responded in an interview with The Schmo, revealing that he's no longer setting his sights on fighters in the twilight years of their career in 2023.
I mean, I don't know, like I'm kind of tired of beating these old dudes up like that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying to get someone in there who is younger, but they're all scared, honestly. They're just trying to protect their record, Schmo. I mean, you know.
It'll be interesting to see who Paul potentially matches up with in the new year. As he sets his sights on a younger opponent, many have wondered whether he will finally step into the ring with a boxer rather than an MMA fighter. With Conor McGregor's friend and training partner Dylan Dennis lined up to box KSI on January 14th, many have predicted that a showdown between Dennis and Paul could be the fight to make, depending on how things play out. Considering a boxing match between Paul and Cerrone is seemingly out of the question, we want to hear from you. Who do you want to see Jake Paul square off with in 2023? Give your thoughts in the comments section below. Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the MMA Zone to see more videos just like this. See you next time.